Okay, what's up, Doc? I had a weird dream last night. I don't know if I'll be able to explain it. I can probably explain why I had it. I just don't know if I'll be able to explain the contents of the dream. So it might sound fragmented. I might just make some notes rather than trying to, make sense of it as a story. So a horse was involved, a car was involved, London was involved, somewhere else like Wales or Leeds, or somewhere in Wales or Leeds was involved, or somewhere in a different country even. There was some kind of museum which sounded grand, some kind of transport museum or something like that in London. Except it wasn't a transport museum, it was like a museum of London, and it consisted of one rather small room, maybe about twice the size of my bathroom, in fact. And in this room was a few items kind of arranged a little like a shed. I think you had a lantern and, one of those ballot boxes things, like money box things. But it was all historical stuff. I mean, it wasn't just any old lantern or any old ballot box, or donation box or whatever the hell it was. A big square box with a hole in the top. And I know that outside my friend was waiting in a car. There's a friend I haven't seen for a long time, who actually shares a name now I think of it, with someone who I spoke to in real life recently. But this friend I haven't spoken to for a long time. He hasn't contacted me. I don't even know where he is. He's probably just moved on somewhere. But in the dream he had a rather neat car, and he was to drive me somewhere, I guess to New York. And then somewhere along the lines, or to wherever this other museum was, I think. I really don't know. Somewhere along the lines, there was an artist, and there was a horse. Like in the dream, I had a horse, like a chestnut, rather large actually, chestnut horse, who I loved dearly. And this artist made a T-shirt of me. It was a really, really nice painting actually. Almost looked like a photograph, especially the horse. Cause I had a photo of the horse, and he drew the horse in exactly the same pose as was on the photo, or more or less. At least the front of the horse was in the same pose. Because curiously, the painting was taken from behind, and it was either me, my brother and sister, or me, my friend, and someone else. Those two other horses was together, and then mine was a little sort of way apart, and then the horse was kind of turning, the horse's head was sort of turned round so you could actually see the horse. And I don't think I was at first. I think you could just see me from behind, and my hair was, I've got this red sort of fiery hair, and that was drawn in a really sort of interesting way. Kind of made me look like an Apache Indian or something. I can't remember Cherokee is the word I'm looking for. Kind of looked me like, made me look a little Cherokee-like. Yeah. So my friend's waiting outside, almost like a taxi, and I'm sort of getting ready. All of a sudden, the station's like my home or something, and I was spending, long amounts of time in the bathroom. I'm looking for things to buy or things to eat, or saying goodbye to friends or something like that. I don't have the horse with me. I don't know where the horse is. I just know that I have this horse somewhere. I think it was my horse, and I was very fond of this horse. So I'm getting ready, and this was like there's a little bit like the train station in Bristol Temple Meads. The setup was a little like Bristol Temple Meads, but not quite. You had a sort of a sort of dead end road, I guess. But the station wasn't at the end as such. The station was kind of at the end, but to the side. And that was the opening or the doorway that I was coming out of all the time to check up on him. And every time I came out, he'd driven a little bit further towards the towards the road. He'd driven a little bit further away. He was growing impatient. I know that. And I was sort of doing things. I couldn't help it. And meanwhile, this artist guy was kind of painting this horse picture. It depicted us hacking in a wood, and I kind of recognise like a woodland path. I kind of recognise the place. And like I said, there was 3 of us. I don't remember who. It was a guy, a guy and a girl together, and then me sort of a little bit behind, but not so, my horse's head was kind of in the middle of the other 2 horses, if you know what I mean. And a little bit to the from behind, I was a little bit to the right. It was the guy on the left, next to him a woman, and I was on the right. That was looking from behind, which is how the the picture was painted. And I think he made this into a T-shirt, which I absolutely love. I think there was a big, canvas version of the painting. He made it into a T-shirt for me, or he made a T-shirt. Maybe made the horse picture relatively normal, but he kind of made a strange kind of spiritual, almost picture, kind of shamanic / Cherokee picture of me. And that was what was on the T-shirt. It was a black T-shirt, and one of these ones you can find in Camden sometimes. It's hard to explain. These T-shirts that have like paintings of jokers that you find in places like Camden and places like that. Well, it's sort of a T-shirt like that, but it pictured what was supposed to be me. And again, that was kind of taken from behind. I know at one point it was anyway, because my hair was kind of like this red stripe, almost like a skunk stripe, but like fire red. And that was my hair. So I don't know. Yeah, this person got further and further in front until he eventually seemed to disappear, but he wasn't when, further inspection, he was right down the path. And I think he kind of sprung back, and he was back where, he was in the first place, but really telling me to hurry up. And I was almost ready. I just needed a piddle or do something small like that. And that was when the art was made. It wasn't till I woke up when I realised that the horse in question was my sister's horse. In fact, I think it had the same name. Just to be sure. The horse didn't really look like. My sister's horse was a chestnut pony. I don't know. I'll ask her. Called Risky. Either a pony or a small horse called Risky. And I know the horse in the dream that was mine was called Risky and was a chestnut horse, but it was a lot bigger and, quite frankly, a lot healthier. When my sister got a horse, it was, he was quite old, but she used to look after him. She looked after him for many years. I just don't remember him personally. My memory of him is, in this older state. My memory of him really is when she actually owned the horse. At which point he was on his last elbow. What happened was, this is in Making Life, obviously, to do with my sister. What happened was, my sister joined. I think she was given, as a birthday present, one of these adopt a horse things. I think that's how it started. I'm not sure, but for years and years and years, she was heavily involved. Basically from childhood into early adulthood. She was involved with this stable. And the way the stable was, they kind of put you in charge of one horse. They kind of put their the people who kind of volunteered there in charge of one horse, and she was in charge of this horse called Risky, who she simply just, who she bonded with, in quite a strong way, over the years. She was with this horse for years and years and spent a large amount of time in this stable. They did shows together. Mostly, they taught other children how to how to ride horses, or just took them on, these hacks you can go on even if you don't, know where the horse's head is. That sort of thing, and, she would lead Risky and things like that, and I think she also mucked Risky out and just generally kind of took charge of the horse as best she could at that age. And then there came a time when the horse was going to be sold, and at this point he was so old that he kind of wasn't worth anything to anyone, other than my sister, obviously. And, to cut a long story short, my dad bought the horse for her, and she looked after the horse until he eventually perished a short time later. And that was risky, and you would have thought I was going to say I have a horse like that myself. Never owned a horse, obviously. Never really looked after those. I used to go horse riding at school, and there was this one horse that, again, I kind of bonded with. All I ever did, I think I actually mucked him out, once or twice, only because I refused to ride, because they made it gallop, which I didn't like. She liked to take the piss and make it gallop deliberately because she knew it scared me. But this was a dapple and grey horse, and I don't know, it's hard to explain. I hardly had any contact, especially compared to what my sister had with Risky. Never had any contact with this, horse, other than I rode him a couple of times and I think mucked him out. But I don't know, the best way I know at one point, we were riding on the road on the way back to the paddocks, and one of the horses got spooked for whatever reason. I don't know if one of the kids decided to be a funny pony. It was a special need, it was a school for people who have what we politely call learning difficulties. And the children were wont to temper tantrums and so forth. Or I don't know if a car simply went past or both. I don't remember. But all, one of the horses got spooked and it spooked the rest of the horses. And, some of the horses threw the riders off. Some of them galloped away. Some of them did both. And Blagden, his name was, I think it was a Blagden horse actually. When I tried to find a photo of him on the internet, I just came up with a bunch of crap, because Blagden is a type of dapple and grey horse. I just got a load of pictures of different dapple and grey horses, and this horse was the same. It was the same type. 'Cause I modelled my My Little Pony OC on this horse. I've made a rug of this. We did bond, but obviously it wasn't in the same way as my sister bonded with Risky. Just on the pretext that, I didn't spend nearly as much time with this horse or work nearly as hard. Like I said, I rode him and I'm pretty sure I mucked him out. When I refused to ride, I said, look, I love horses, and I really do, but, I prefer the care. I prefer caring for horses and talking to them and all that sort of thing. And, riding really isn't a reward to me. I guess if I had a horse, I'd ride the horse just to be kind to the horse if necessary, just to exercise the horse. But I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much as most horsey people seem to. To most horsey people, the riding or the dressage or whatever you're into, sitting on the horse seems to be the highlight, and that would be the, that wouldn't be the case for me. I'd have a pet horse. Mind you, if I had, if Blagden was my horse, I'd ride him all the time, I think, because of his nature. I mean, it depends on the situation, doesn't it, with horses? Anyway, this story, all the horses were spooked. Blagden was clearly spooked, clearly frightened, like he was shaking, like, every time there was a loud noise, every time one of the horses kicked out, or when the children screamed, or the teacher sort of shouted, or there's any kind of loud noise, he kind of shouted. But he stood perfectly still, waited for all the other horses to leave. And you could see even by his facial expression, it was absolutely amazing. And I was sitting on Blagden at the time. I'm pretty damn sure. I could be wrong I'm pretty damn sure I was riding Blagden at the time, luckily. And then he waited till all the horses had gone, and he just gently strolled into the into the paddock. And he was, obviously, because he knew that I was scared of, I was kind of scared of going, particularly in the woods. I mean, to make a novice rider gallop in the woods is a bit mean, because they tend to take the piss, or at least these horses did. They really wanted it to fall off, and they gallop under. So a horse, when it gallops, their head kind of goes almost flat, and then you're the highest point. So they went under these low, stupid, branches and stuff, and there was absolutely nothing you could do. Like, you tried to steer the horse, and the horse just wouldn't listen. It was stupid. But Blagden was just completely different, and he was obviously thinking of the rider. Despite the fact that, every instinct he had must have been telling him to, run, get the fuck out of there. And all this game, he kind of didn't. He seemed like the sort of horse that would lay down his life for the rider, and he was the only one in the paddock. And like I said, it's not even like he was my horse, and I was looking after him. As far as he was concerned, and as far as the other horses were concerned. We were just kids who sat on them from time to time, and I don't know. I mean, I guess there was other incidents that happened, in the short time that, I knew him. I wasn't always allowed to ride him. I must have ridden him like 4 times and mucked him out the maximum of 2 times. And that was, all I knew of him. But really, he's kind of become my horse guide. I think everyone has a horse guide, and he's sort of become my horse guide, as it were. Like I said, I did make a rug, like a horse rug. Whenever I'm doing something, whenever I'm buying like a realistic model of a horse or something like that, I'll always go for a dappling grey, and I'll always go for one that looks like Blagden, or my memory of Blagden, and I base Bohemscree on Blagden. The look of Bohemscree is a dappling grey. And I base Bohemscree on Blagden. And of course, Bohemscree is a dream horse. So, you'd expect if I'm going to dream of a horse like that, you'd expect it to be Blagdon, and instead I kind of sniped my sister's horse. It wasn't until I woke up, I was all about, maybe I was my sister in the dream. I don't know. That would kind of make sense, I suppose. So you see, it's kind of a strange dream to have. I'm going to have to look at some dictionaries to get some ideas of what it could mean and have a little think about it. Then I'll probably continue this little rant. Okay, so one thing that sprang to mind is around Christmas time I was given, for Christmas I was given the books War Horse and Farm Boy by my father. I was there when he bought them. It was after Christmas. For the love of all things sacred. I was there when he bought them, and then we went to a pub, for a meal, which is when he gave me them, and I started to read War Horse. I knew the film was coming out in England. It came out. It's bloody MP3 player. There. I'm sorry. In England, it came out sort of start of February. But I knew it was coming. I didn't know when, actually, and I wanted to read the book before I went to see the film. So I kind of started it right there in the pub. I think I got through a couple of chapters. And I recalled quite vividly, because as I explained, my sister was way into horses, and one Christmas when she was very young, she was given a paperback novel, which was part of a series of novels about a stable, I believe. And I remember her at my grand's, and she just got engrossed in this book almost immediately. She started reading it. I don't think she stopped reading it pretty much all day, which is kind of unusual for us, for me, my brother, my sister at the time. We were sort of quite active children, always sort of running around and playing. But no, she just sat there and sort of read this book. About horses, and like I said, my dad was with me, as was my sister. Actually, we were all in this pub. My dad was having bought me these books. He was buying as a meal, and I don't know. I didn't want to come across as suggesting that I wanted him to buy me a horse like he bought, Risky for Hannah. And I was sort of conscious of this. I was conscious of this thought as I was reading this book in, the pub, and, eventually I put it away. I thought it was kind of, I didn't want to read it, too much, when, I'm in a pub with other people eating a meal sort of thing, what I'm saying? Well, I managed to read the whole of War Horse just before the last showing of the the film, at least in this town. I don't know why it took me so long to read it. Possibly the same reason. I don't know. It's only a small book, I really don't know why, long or complicated books take me a shorter time to read than small, and or simple, books, and War Horses certainly both. It's a good book, I enjoyed it, but it is small. It took me the best part of 2 months to read. Well, the best part of 2 months to read half of it actually, and then a day to read the other half. I just sat down and didn't put it down until I'd read it all, and then I had an hour to get to the pictures to see the last showing. But I managed it, and when I got to the theatre, I had Farm Boy with me, which is an even smaller book, and it's illustrated. It's about 114 pages, I think, and illustrated, and not the smallest, not the most condensed typeface in the world either, so it's not long, and I thought, maybe I could get through it in half an hour, and, I'd have read both books before, seeing the film. And I didn't manage, of course. I didn't get through a fraction of it, really. I got to the pictures too late, basically. But I saw the film, and now I want to read Farm Boy, which, as I explained, is a tiny book, and then I want to get on to reading other things. I've got this expensive book which I've got Jordan Owen's book which cost me a pretty penny, and I want to read that next, and get on to other books after that. I've got a long reading list, a long and ever growing reading list, and last night I had it on the arm of my chair, and I was going to read it. I thought I'll have an hour or so free at some point this evening, and I'll just sit down and read it, and then and then tomorrow I can start this Eros Empire thing. But it never happened. I mean, I was just interrupted, time and time and time again. Every 2 minutes I was interrupted by something. And I kept sort of looking at this book and thinking, I'm supposed to be reading this, I want to read this. I don't know why I was so preoccupied yesterday. And it's kind of the same thing tonight, but at least I'm preoccupied with doing things, with making this video, and I'm trying to get my previous video together. I have to re-render it because my computer's shit, basically. Then I'm going to have to make, render this video because I'm recording it in MP3, obviously, and I want to make a couple of other videos and, deal with this, that, and the other. But at least, I'm preoccupied with doing things like this. I mean, yesterday it was like phone calls and Second Life and just, hunger and this, that, and the other. And maybe tomorrow I'll get to read the damn thing. And that might have something to do. And I was looking at this book, and he might have stirred this memory, of this, of being in this pub and reading this very similar sort of shaped book. I mean, the book that my sister got that year was about the same size, and was a paperback. So kind of a similar book on kind of a similar topic. To the one she was reading that day. And yeah, maybe that's the explanation for me riding her horse. You know, that's what I was doing. I was riding her horse, and as if it was my own. It took, you know, it wasn't until I woke up that I realised, hang on a minute, Risky was my sister's horse. You know, about 2 minutes after I woke up, not even that, you know, 30 seconds after I woke up, I kind of thought, that was weird, you know, Risky, wait a minute, Risky was my sister's horse. You know, Blagdon is the horse that I should have been dreaming about, or maybe Joey from the book, or, you know, some other random horse, but Risky is my sister's horse. As for the car, I mean, trains are something that I dream about a lot. And I was in a train station and, you know, transferring to what was effectively a car. Now my friend, Simon. Simon's his name. And Simon is also the name. I was on a bus, this is in Waking Life. I was on a bus. I'm sorry. And this guy, this very sort of friendly guy who will come up and talk to anybody, came onto the bus. My partner's online. Came onto the bus and sat right in front of me with his friend, and then started. Weirdly enough, he started talking about a dream he had, like a horrible dream he had where somebody died or something like that, and I was thinking, oh, that's interesting. And then he starts talking to me and saying that I shouldn't be shy, and then he kind of, I think he took it that I didn't want to, you know, that I was going to continue to be shy, you know, and continue not to speak to strangers, which is kind of commonplace around here, but it's not something that I engage in. I tend to keep myself to myself, which is pretty much the opposite of my intent of moving up this way again. You know, I wanted to move up here again because I was living in St Albans, which is a bit of a dormitory, commuter town, strange place. And I wanted to live somewhere that was a little bit more communal. You know, and having moved, I just keep myself to myself, which is a bit silly. So actually I was really grateful to Simon, but I don't think that came across. And, you know, and this was a friend that I used to hang out with a lot, you know, the guy in the dream. And then he kind of fell off the face of the earth. He's called me once since I've lived in this town. But that was years ago, and nobody knows where he's gone. You know, nobody knows where he is. At least nobody that I know. No, and it's really strange. And this was a guy who picked me up, and I think his character is very telling as well. I mean, he did suffer from paranoid schizophrenia, but I think it was one of these people who kind of used that diagnosis almost as an excuse to be a bit of a funny pony, and that might have had something to do with it. I've no idea who the artist was. But yeah, transferring from a train station, getting back to a taxi. Yeah, trains it's just a complicated metaphor, and one that I love a lot. I love trains almost for the reason that I love the metaphor, and the dream metaphor that they sort of bring up in me, or bring up for me. And it would take a rather long video, which I intend to make one these days, but it would take a rather long video for for me to explain that, so look out for that one, I guess. And then transferring from that, trains are more or less free, you're more or less free to choose what trains you ride on, and depending on where they're going and what's available and how much they cost and how comfortable they are and all of that sort of thing. And going into a cab, which it wasn't even a cab, it was my friend driving me somewhere, so I don't have control, but I do. I think it's a different it's a different method of transport, and maybe I could look in this here book for ideas. It's hard to explain, but it's definitely moving from one mode of transport to another. Of course, I had the museum, so that just the small museum, so that just amplifies the book metaphor, really, the horse metaphor. And of course a horse is yet another mode of transport in itself, and I think I was to, meet up with the horse again. I think the horse was coming with me, being transported, but by a different means. It's being shipped, or I don't even put horses in planes. I don't know. The horse was being transported by on a different route, and we were sort of going to meet up in a different place, I think. But obviously, I wasn't going to ride the horse to this different place. I was going to ride the train and then be driven by my friend, and then you got the artist kind of painting. And I was just going to say the whole picture, but yeah, he painted me on my sister's horse, and painted my sister on another horse, and I think somebody else was riding Blagden. I think Blagden was actually there, or some kind of dapple and grey horse was there. And by the way, I would assume that this horse was Joey from Warhorse, to be honest. I mean, they were kind of similar looking horses. They're both chestnut and both had what I call grey spots, the spot on their head. But I definitely called the horse Whiskey. I don't know, the picture was drawn from behind. The other two horses were in front of me and riding together. I was separated and riding slightly behind. And that might represent something. That might represent my my disappointment, in myself, or my frustration of not being able to read these books in time, not being able to read both books in time for the movie, having to read Farm Boy after having seen the movie, so where I wanted to do it the other way around. That would make sense, wouldn't it? So yeah, very involved dream. And I had a couple of cheese and egg sandwiches just before I went to bed, sort of deliberately, to see what would come up, and this is what did come up, and it was short as hell, vivid, and quite. There's probably more to it than that, but I'd have to look into it a bit deeper. But yeah, that's It's now the 3rd of March. I will have had this dream yesterday on the 2nd of March 2011, and yeah, that's that really.